Hello. I have another panel for you guys for Psychology for Geeks, and I am very excited about this one because it's totally last minute. Thank you, ADHD brain. But it's a great topic. We're going to be talking about Disney, and of course, Disney includes Star Wars and princesses and other cool movies like Pirates of the Caribbean as well. And Marvel. So we're going to be talking a little bit about everything today. But before we get started, I'm going to introduce my panel members. If you guys could just sort of like introduce yourself and where you're from, what you do. Question I always ask: what was your origin story as a geek? How did you get started into the geek culture?
Hi, I'm Dr. Stacy Greeter. I'm a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist down in the Sarasota, Florida area. I love psychiatry. I'm also neurodivergent. I'm autistic and ADHD, and psychiatry is my special interest and passion. And another one of my special interests is fantasy creatures. And I have always loved fantasy from a very young age. I would love to swing on a swing for hours and just imagine different things in my mind, different places. So fantasy resonates with me on a deep level from a young age. I use fantasy themes and popular franchises like Disney, Star Wars, etc., as teaching tools and it's combining my special interests and I call it psychoeducational fan fiction. So I'll take a franchise like Star Wars, for example, and I have a series called How to Become a Psychiatry Jedi, and I use the metaphors and the characters to give the psychiatry education more resonance with people. Thanks.
So I'm Nicole Kinsley. I am from Alberta, Canada. I'm a registered psychologist up here. I work for the public health system, providing free services to individuals that just generally need help. So we take in a really wide range of individuals. They use a centralized access service to be able to get people in, but we also take people at our individual clinics. I work rurally, so I have worked in smaller communities pretty much my whole career. Yeah, and then I have a private practice that I run called Beautiful Beginnings Counseling, and that I primarily take individuals. So my specialization is working with children and trauma, but within my private practice, it's really open to whoever needs help. But I do tend to have more individuals that are struggling with trauma and life adjustment, simply because I specialize in EMDR for adults and children. So that's usually what people are looking for when they come to the private practice. My origin story is I've always been a geek. My mom was very into fantasy. One of my favorite memories when I was just emerging into the adult world was I was introduced to Harry Potter by a roommate of mine. And my mom said, "Hey, let's read it together." And so as an adult, we would set time apart every night and we would sit together and we would read a chapter to each other. So just kind of always had that love of connection with fantasy. And I'm like you, I would spend hours just imagining things and creating worlds. I joked when I was younger that my life goals were to be a princess, to be a mermaid, and to be a cheerleader. And I got to do all of those through university and musical theater opportunities. So I was like, yay, I got to do all the things.
That's amazing. I talked about mine in different panels, but I'm a reader, so that's kind of how I started. But I think now looking back, I mean, obviously I was younger, so love Disney princesses, but it wasn't until I started reading, and I kind of started with like Harry Potter, and then like moved on to like Lord of the Rings and stuff. But like that's how, and then after that, like after I went all through, 'cause I grew up in a very rural town in California, so our library is very small. And once I exhausted sort of like the books that I was interested in, I found fan fiction online, and it was free, and there were so many, and I was like, yeah, I'm still hooked to this day.
Mm-hmm.
um So yeah, that's my thing. So we're talking Disney today. Is there a favorite, I guess we can call it fandom or movie that you would like to use with your clients? And it can be me, Marvel, Star Wars, Pirates, like any, just Disney. But technically, does
Um,
that include also Pixar?
It
Disney's taking
does.
over, honestly. So soon, so it's like everything includes Disney these days. But well, most recently, I actually did a presentation last week, um, for the Florida Medical Association on female physician infertility. By the way, 25% of female physicians struggle with infertility. And I talked about Elsa wanting to freeze her eggs to try to donate eggs to her
Mm.
sister, Anna. So Anna and Christoph were facing infertility. And then I talked about the psychological impact on them as a couple and how they worked through that as a teaching tool to provide to decrease stigma and help people understand what it's like when you're going through that infertility journey.
That's not something we typically talk about as well, infertility for women, and like how that really
Yes.
impacts your life. Yeah.
Yes. So I think, I mean, so part of the power of stories and fantasy is it allows us to talk about a taboo topic
Hmm.
and in a way that you can have the humor and the pain melded to bring the experience to life for people, um, without having to without talking about a real life situation, but it still can feel very real.
One of the things that I like to talk about with therapists when I'm talking about like how they can incorporate like geek culture into the session
Yeah.
is that it really allows, not only is it really helpful for making sort of like an instant connection with your therapist,
Mm-hmm.
because earlier I saw the ABBA uh, behind Nicole, and I was like, oh my god, we both love Avatar, and instantly I was like, yes, I would love to talk to you, and I could talk to you about Avatar for days. um
Yeah.
and that's sort of like
Connecting
how
through
it
special
happened.
interests. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Connecting through special
But
interests is very powerful. And that's actually a distinguishing feature of how autistic people connect through sharing information and sharing a special interest.
yeah, and also it when it's your first time going to therapy, or seeking any sort of like mental health service, sometimes it's really hard to talk about the things that you've struggled with. So if we use Anna and Elsa instead,
Yeah.
and then say, well, Anna had this problem, then
Mm-hmm.
it's just a lot easier, and certainly it's not about me, but it's still about
Yes.
me, and I'm still like able to connect and learn from this. But it just makes it a lot easier to be
Yeah.
able to talk about difficult subjects. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I find in all of my initial assessments, that's something that I bring up is that therapy's weird. Like to go and talk to a complete stranger about things that you can't tell your best friend or wouldn't tell your closest relative, um, it's weird and it's hard. And so I think having those fandom connections is really important. Um, it's just to open people up and let them see. And it does. I think it creates that bubble of safety, not only the relational piece of, hey, wait, you see me, and we can use something external to connect us, but also, okay, there's a bubble of safety around that I can use metaphor to share what I need to share, but also protect kind of those really sensitive and delicate parts of myself that I may not be open to giving you all the nitty gritty details just yet.
And it helps us as clinicians feel more human and relatable.
Mhm.
A lot of people are
Very
very
true.
scared to see a psychiatrist for the first time, which I definitely understand. Anything that we can do to be more vulnerable and open with people to help decrease that power differential between the patient and the doctor some, to empower the patient, I'm all for. And one way is by being a geek ourselves.
Yeah, because it shows us how, like, we're human. We like the same things that you do, we're just like you, which a lot of people tend to forget. And I work, my first language is Spanish, so I work a lot with Spanish speaking individuals. And there is, especially for my parents are, well, I'm Mexican. So I work a lot with Mexican individuals, and there is this huge thing about, if you go seek a professional, the professional's words is sort of like law. There's nothing you can sort of like say about
Mm-hmm.
it. Like, a lot of people don't even ask questions. It's just sort of like, that's what they told me and that's what I'm gonna do. But also there is the, well, I don't really want to go because they don't even care about me. Like, it's not like something that we're conscious about, which is like, oh, I don't want to go to the doctor. But a lot of the times it's
Mm-hmm.
because early, I'm going to like totally bring back the conversation you guys were having earlier about, like, when you work with organizations, sometimes you are required to see, like 40 to 60 clients, and that really reduces the time and the energy that you have for clients, right? So if you're, instead of having like a 45-minute session, you need to, diagnose in 15, or like, do whatever you need to do in 15 minutes because you have so many other like things scheduled. It really hinders that connection with another person. And then that's why, like, well, they don't really care about me. They're just like, what are you here for? How do you feel? All right, you're out the door now. And especially for Mexican people, we're all about, like, community and how you feel around other people. Because I really realized that no matter what my degree is, whatever I say doesn't really hold that much weight. But if I'm part of the community, it holds so much more weight, regardless of what kind of degree I have, or like letters at the end of my name. Because I realized that, like, even my parents, they know how much I like studied and like struggled, and like how much information I can offer. And sometimes I give them advice, or I say something about, mental health, and then they're like, oh, sure, that's nice. And then they see like some random person, uh like, that they're connected with through like social media or like the community, and they're like, hey, I got this great piece of advice. And I'm like, I've been saying that for months. But like, they don't, like, it doesn't carry the same weight because, I'm not like a part of the community. So essentially that's why I
Mm-hmm.
created Psychology for Geeks, because I want to be part of that community and say, hey, it's okay to reach out to us, because we're just like you. We like the same
Mm-hmm.
things that you do. We have the same struggles. Unfortunately, as much as it would be great, we don't have our own life, like, figured out. And so it's a journey that we're also,
Yeah.
going through.
I always say, um, I have no less problems than other people. I just know all the diagnostic names for them. And that, unfortunately, being a psychiatrist is not serve as a vaccination against psychiatric illness either. That would be nice, right? Um, and I think you make a good point there.
And I like that you brought that up too, because oftentimes people are drawn into these fields because they realize that there's people, hey, I didn't find what I needed when I was struggling. And so taking the path of, psychiatry or psychology is part of their origin story of, I want to be that superhero in somebody else's life. I want to be that person that, not necessarily putting ourselves as a rescuer, but, I think definitely wanting to be in that position of having the option to provide a service that wasn't provided for you, and educating yourself about the things you're passionate about because maybe you didn't have access to the information you needed when you were struggling the most.
And I think it also, to me, it's also helped me as a professional as well. Because I remember being in school, and sometimes we get emails about professional events that were happening, so you could start networking. And I was like, no, thank you. I was like, I would just go my life without ever networking with anybody, because I don't want to. And then I had psychology for geeks, and then I was like, I'm just gonna reach out to a couple of other geeky therapists so we can, do one post for my social media. And then I never stopped since then. And I love it so much. And now I'm like, oh, extra people I can geek out, because I don't even see it as networking. I'm like, oh, you like the same things I like? We can geek out together. Perfect. So it's like, but it is networking. So now I'm like, yes, all about for networking. I can network for days and I'll not get tired because it's something I'm passionate about. And, so the other people, and there's that instant connection of like, oh, you love Avatar, you love Disney, you love Star Wars. Me too. We have something in common. Now we can start a conversation. Because before I was like, what do I even talk about? Especially as a student, I was like, I know nothing. Like these people are like professionals or whatever. They have so much experience. My opinion has changed since then. But I was always like, I felt so like, I have no energy to network with other professionals. And now I'm like, oh, networking with other geeky professionals gives me all the energy. So, moving back to fandoms, if you had to pick one movie that you will highly recommend people watch and sort of process with each other or with another like a mental health professional, or reflect on the lesson, or like whatever happens in the movie, what movie would you recommend?
Just one?
Okay. Does it have to be
That's
Disney
so
since we're
tough.
Disney, right? It has to be Disney.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be Disney. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Encanto.
Yes.
Um, it covers so many themes. Um, intergenerational trauma. Um, it covers the false self versus the real authentic self. I don't remember her name, the girl with the flowers. And it covers
Either.
the sense
It's
of, do I
Louisa.
belong in this
Nope. That's not.
family?
Oh,
And
Yeah,
then
sorry, go
also,
ahead.
okay, the song for that the woman sang, who is the strong one. I'm sorry, I'm very bad with names.
that's Lisa.
Pressure.
Luisa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one spoke to me. That one spoke to me. I feel like there's a lot on our shoulders, a lot of felt responsibility wanting to help people in the profession. What do you think? I don't know what you think about that, Nicole.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I could Encanto all day long. I've had childhood favorites from the time I was and Encanto kind of blew them all away when it happened because I'm like, it's everything. It covers so much. And even I've had lots of entire sessions with clients where we kind of break down, we don't talk
Mm-hmm.
about Bruno, because whether that is the silent secret of mental health, that we don't talk about that thing, whether it is an actual
Mm-hmm.
family member that has stepped outside the family cultural or religious backgrounds and they're like, okay, we just don't talk about that person anymore. Like it opens up so many doorways. And I think the characters are so like, even each one of their powers, like you break them down, some of them are terrible powers. Like they're not fun superpowers. Being able to hear everything like a pin drop from miles away would be painful. And I think that's a really important piece, especially about, and I do lots of work with clients that can geek out with me about like, what is your superpower? What would you want? And breaking that down because there's so much there about like, what do you value? What are your goals? What are your core beliefs? How does this fit in with who you are as a person? And Encanto just like checks all those boxes. And it's also visually beautiful. Like if you turn the sound off and just look at the visuals, it is everything.
And the music too. The music's amazing.
Like there's not a song on that soundtrack I would skip. Not one. And we do dance parties at our house, so a lot of times Google is inundated with Encanto, and we just are like dancing in the kitchen because it's great. Dance parties are great.
I would.
Yeah, great
Yes, I
music.
love. I love that movie. It is fantastic. But I am super biased, and I'm actually gonna say I would recommend people watch Coco. Um,
Tell me
because,
more.
well, I because I identify with it, and I think for me it was the
Mm-hmm.
first time. There is another movie that uses the Day of the Dead. I forgot what that one's called, but
It's
I
the Book of
didn't
Life.
really. Yeah, The Book of Life. Yeah, it's great movie. Not gonna say no, but it didn't like I didn't connect with it. And then I watched Coco, and I went when it came out on theaters. My mom was actually the one that was insisting on going with me, and she doesn't really watch movies because she doesn't speak English, and she can care less about the movies that we typically watch. But this time she said like it's in Spanish, and I can go, and it looks really cute, and I was like I went, and then I like half of the movie I was just like crying my eyes out because it was a very um real experience for me to be able to see my culture the way I experience it, being portrayed like on TV, and a lot of the struggles within the family. I was like, like I've been through that, or currently going through that. So I was just like crying, and I watched it like 4 times with like 4 different people, and every single time I would just cry. And if I were to watch it right now, I'll probably start crying as well, because it's just like it really touched. And I think for me, for a very long time, I was about 9 years old when we moved to the US. So I wasn't really attached, or I
Mm.
didn't know all that much about my own culture. And I tried to fit in, and the way to fit in is to forget everything about your culture, right? So I tried to push my culture sort of aside, except for the food, because food is delicious. Never forget about the food. Um, but everything else is sort of like try to not pay attention to it or not engage in it. And now as an adult, I'm like, no, I really want to know more about like where we come from, and like how the culture, all the beliefs and everything, because I know how important it is now. And yeah, for me, Coco was the first movie um, that I was really able to connect with, and it showed my culture the way that I know it. Um, and there is a lot of like very similar to Encanto, where there's like a lot of family dynamics that can be explored. There's culture and like different generations and stuff. So I would just recommend that one, but I'm super biased. as I as I
It's
said,
okay to
yeah.
be biased, especially when it's something you love. Uh, PSA, they just announced at the 2024 conference, they are making a Coco slash Encanto land in Disney World.
That's right.
Yeah, they are
Ooh.
So have to
using their
come. You'll
Sesame
have to
Land
come
dock.
to my neck of the woods.
Well, I
I'm sure it'll
recently
be
learned.
beautiful. I can't wait.
Yeah, I recently learned about what is it, MegaCon? Is
Oh,
it
I
in Orlando?
presented at MegaCon. I did.
Okay.
Ah, that's
So I
awesome.
presented Autistic Minds Are Magical, which was a Harry Potter themed autism presentation, where I played Hermione Granger, and my husband played Ron Weasley, and my friend played Rowena Ravenclaw at MegaCon. You should come to MegaCon
Where is that
Yes.
hosted?
in Tampa, but sometimes it's in
Oh,
Orlando.
Okay.
oh, okay.
So it
Yeah.
rotates between Tampa and Orlando.
I have a good friend that lives there, and then I'm like, yes, I am definitely gonna go visit you now, because I not only is visiting Disney World on my bucket list, and now it's even more on my bucket
Yes.
list. It's moved up, and I'm like, yeah, Universal Studios is there, my friend is there, and I'm like, Orlando, I could just do like a whole month being there and like hitting
Yeah.
up with these spots.
Have you not
That
been
would be
yet?
great.
Have you not been yet?
I've only been to
Really?
Disneyland. Yeah,
Well, you
because
gotta
it's like right
Wow.
go.
here. Yeah, so
Um,
I'm like, yeah, definitely.
International OCD Foundation Conference is going to be in Orlando in July. If you want to combine a conference by any chance with going to Orlando to see Universal Studios and Disney World. Just throwing that out there.
There you go. Now I have an
That's a
extra
great thing to put
reason.
out there.
Yeah. There are a lot of conferences in Orlando too, so you can make it a combo.
I had a conversation with my manager earlier in the year where I was like, I'm done with continuing education being online from like after this year. I'm like, anything I go to for continuing education is going to be like, I'm getting on a plane to go there. So that would be a great excuse to come down.
I just ever since like my nonprofit like get accepted and in an official capacity, uh I'm like, well, I need to start promoting it, right? So I've been doing panels at different conventions as well. And I mean, I love going to conventions just in general. And I mean, this gives me like an extra incentive to go. So now I'm like, because like I'm like, oh, I spoke to Dr. Gamology just a few weeks ago because we did a panel together at WonderCon, and he was saying that he basically has like the whole gauntlet of like all of the major panels, all the major like cons in the US. And then I'm like, oh, that was not something I even thought about, but now it's my goal. Now I want to go to like the PAX one. I want to go to the one in New York, the one MegaCon, and I'm like, yes. And now I have to do panels in all of these places for the nonprofit, of course. Like I'm trying to promote my nonprofit, but you know, I still get to go to these amazing
Yeah.
places that I love and geek out. So vacation and work all rolled into one.
I'm, I'm fully in support of doing what we need to do within there because I think you had brought up the question about like what do we do for ourselves to engage in our fandom, and that's, I mean, it kind of checks all the boxes of do work, do play, meet people, network.
Yeah.
hmm
The
So,
only
what
So
are
other
we
thing that I
your?
would
Mhm.
would be Inside Out. I
Oh,
also, if
Inside
I'm allowed to.
Out. Um,
Oh, and the
Yeah,
new movie's
my
coming out
office
soon,
dressed
right?
up as the characters from Inside Out for Halloween. So I
I'm
was
actually
Joy, of course,
deeply
and then
hoping.
yeah.
I'm really deeply hoping that because we're going down to Florida in September, and I'm
hmm
crossing my fingers and toes that they'll have an option to get all of the emotions and like little stuffies so that I can have them on my work shelf. So I can just
hmm
have all the emotions to choose from. Because
Oh, knew what you need to
who
get.
doesn't
You
need
need to get.
anxiety on their bookshelf?
Well, you need the kimochis. So it's the Japanese word for feeling, Kimochis. I can
I
put
do
it in the
have
chat.
those.
So, anyways, do you have the kimochis?
I
No,
do. I was actually heartbroken
the little
because they
feeling
got really
guys.
popular and then they died out. I was gifted with Bug, and then I really wanted Cloud, like deeply wanted Cloud, and I paid for it and ordered it, and then they discontinued them, and so I
Okay,
was never
you
able to
can
get
go.
my
You can
Cloud.
go on Amazon and you can get the big bag of feelings that has all of the mini ones in one go.
Yeah,
Okay,
I've
and so
got
I put them
those.
in a
I actually
bowl.
love
Yeah,
them.
all the little ones. Yeah.
And they're super great, especially when you're teaching emotional regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of gives you an outlet as a therapist because one of the tools that I use when I'm using them is I'll take the feelings and like huck them at my clients
Yeah, I do that too. I
and
throw
be like,
feelings at
what does it
people.
feel like when
Kids like
people are
that.
throwing their feelings at you? And they think it's funny, right? And they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
it feels weird. And so you're like, well, what does it feel like when I hand it to you? And I tell you what it is. And then they get that like very visual piece of, oh, wait, I can do different things with my feelings as opposed to throwing them in people's faces.
Well, I'm child psychiatry as well as adults, so I just get a great result from throwing things at people in general and them throwing
I,
things at
I
me.
And them throwing things
one
at
of
us
the
too.
things,
Yes.
like one of the things too that I discovered, because again, like I said, I originally started working with kids at first because I thought that's what I wanted to do, and then I started working with adults, and I love that as well. So now I do both. Um, but things that we are like, oh, this is a kid activity. It actually is also a like an amazing activity for an adult. We don't really think about it, and you may get like a little bit of
hmm
pushback from adult because it's like a little cringe, like, oh, I'm an adult, I don't do that. But if you get them to like actually do it, it's so fun and they enjoy it because we all have that inner child, and it's so fun and great, and we can be creative, and it's a lot easier to
Yeah.
understand sometimes, so
We all
yeah,
need
like
play.
Absolutely.
My
yes,
inner child
definitely,
is
yeah.
very much my outer child. It's not
Yeah,
it's
My
not
mom
same.
it's not
always said,
inside. It's outside too.
right. Well, and my mom always said, growing old is mandatory, growing up is optional. And I've kind of taken that to heart because I think even within that fandom too, of having being able to incorporate fandom is a bit of inner child work for adults as well as reparenting for us. Is we're reparenting that individual to be able to have an experience of having somebody who is genuinely caring and compassionate and values the things that you value. And that can be so healing for people to just have another adult in their life that
Mhm.
says, hey, I see you and I hear you, and I will show
Mhm.
genuine interest in what you have. Like, that's an act of reparenting.
Yes. And so I always encourage my sibling to buy all the toys they always wanted and start collecting things. We're like horrible to each other. I tell my sibling that I'm like, we shouldn't like go to conventions together, because we're like, hey, it's like get 5 posters for like, like $50 or something. You get three, I get two. Should I buy it? Or we're like, oh, this thing is really expensive, a little bit out of my budget, but it's really cool. And I'm like, you should get it. You just get it. Like we're just like just encouraging each other to geek out. And I'm like, it's not good for our wallet. It's great for like our mental health and everything and our connection as siblings, but um our bank account is always crying because of that.
I think everyone needs somebody in their life that is on both sides. You need the practical friend or family member that's like, let's think about this. Is this in the budget? But also the person's like, buy the things. We need
Yeah, forget
balance.
the budget. Okay, like I said, like I said earlier, like Disney is a lot, and we kind of talked about some princesses here and there. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the people, or like the real people movies, like Star Wars and Marvel. So I guess we can just start with Marvel real fast. Same question: if you were to encourage someone to watch, now we have the shows or the movies, what show would you recommend? I
Okay.
can, go ahead and start first if you guys want some time to
Sure.
think, because again, I am super biased. Loki is my all-time favorite character, and I was always so upset every time we want to watch a Thor movie, an adventure movie, because uh, they're not very nice to Loki in those movies, and I'm like, but I know he can be better, and I know he's great. And then we got the season 1 and season 2 of the Loki show, and we saw like sort of like his healing journey, and I just absolutely loved it, because part of the reason why I wanted to work with kiddos and why I love Loki is because I realized that he was wounded as a child. So if he had someone that supported him when he was a child, he probably wouldn't have become like evil. He wouldn't have gone the wrong path, but he didn't. And then so the way that I think about it is, when I work with kids, yes, it is hard because I am getting older, and sometimes sitting on the floor is it's a struggle. When I'm working with kids, sometimes that also involves, speaking to the rest of the family, parents, other siblings, and that is like a lot of work as well. Sometimes it also includes like contacting schools, and so many people don't really want to work with kids because of that. And I'm like, but it's just so worth it, because I just feel like I am that superhero that Loki, or like that therapist that Loki needed when he was a kid. And then so when I work with kids, I'm like, nah, I'm here for you. So then you go down the right path, not that like make all the harmful decisions that Loki ended up doing. So I would definitely recommend the Loki series, because it's amazing, and Tom Hiddleston acting is just perfect.
He was at
And I
MegaCon
almost want
this
to get that.
year. Tom
Really?
I
Hiddleston.
saw.
He was at MegaCon.
Yes.
That would be so
Yep.
cool.
Yep. So there are a lot of people dressed as Loki at MegaCon. which is really cool.
Well, I can see the appeal of him because he reaches so many demographics. Because even traditionally, he is this shapeshifter. He can be female, he can be male, he can turn into an animal. All things that I think people kind of, especially this time in history, is people really relate to. And I think you mentioned like books are your thing, and the Rick Riordan series, Magnus Chase, does have a Loki character that is non-binary and switches, and it's very connective, I think, for people to have a character like that that's so normalized that it's like, okay, yeah, like now she's she and now he's he, and that's okay, and nobody stigmatizes it. And I think it's such a beautiful example of, hey, we can use characters to be able to feel connected and to normalize what people's experiences are about, yeah, like the fact that you could walk in a room and be exactly who you are without people being like, maybe you should, shh, don't talk about that, don't be that person. Like,
Hmm.
Loki's such a great example of that.
I also like now with the sort of like the extended universe and all like the different kinds of Loki, you can just basically be any kind of Loki you imagine, and technically it's canon because it exists somewhere, you know.
Right?
So that's
Hmm.
it's amazing. I love that because again, it just gives so much room for creativity. Because I went to LA Comic Con in December to do a panel, and I saw the greatest Loki cosplay. Because I have been wanting to cosplay for a long time, but I usually go to the San Diego Comic Con, and it's really hot, and I'm like, I don't want to carry things. I don't want to wear something that's uncomfortable because I'm there all day. But then I saw someone who was just in pajamas, like in green pajamas with the Loki crown. And I was like, that is perfect. I will wear that all day. I would just be walking around in pajamas. Like, that is fantastic. That's such a great idea. All right. So, what movie or show would you guys recommend?
Oh,
I can
see,
talk
I
about
would
Loki all
say the
day.
Avengers series if I can like, but if I have to like, you have to choose one.
Mhm.
Original Iron Man. Like, I will go with the OG. I love the casting. I don't know that they could have cast anybody more perfectly than Robert Downey Jr. And I love his arc. I love the idea of him starting from this place of just like self privilege, self righteousness, and moving into a place of humility where, like, his overarching, I mean, they say in multiple movies throughout the series of like, you're not the one to make the sacrifice. You're not the one that's gonna you protect other people. You're out for you. And then the whole overarching is he protects everyone. And I love that so much. But I also love the metaphor of what did it cost him? Like, what did it cost him to protect everybody? And, you know, even talking about using that as a metaphor for boundaries, about like, what kind of boundaries do you need so that you are not the person that has to sacrifice everything for everyone? Like, it
Mhm.
opens up a lot of discussion, I think.
I
And
think it's
there's a lot to
interesting.
with. Mhm.
Oh, I was just noting that all of the characters who we most deeply connect with are very flawed and make a lot of mistakes and go through a lot of evolution. Not the characters who are idealized as much.
Well, because they're to
Hmm.
us we are flawed, we make mistakes all the
Yes.
time, we're human, so we connect with those characters. And now too there's the sort of almost like a movement where there's a lot of people connecting with like anti-heroes or the villains because eh, they usually experience some sort of like trauma or like really difficult life situation that leads them down this path, and we're like, yeah, I can totally understand, and if I was in your shoes maybe I would have chosen the same thing or something similar. um I I'm really glad you mentioned Iron Man because there are like newer like movies and shows that discuss mental health a little bit more. Um, but yeah, the original ones are are still really good, because you also have with Tony, you also have the whole alcohol, and the trauma of losing his parents, and of being betrayed by someone he really trusted. Like, there is so much going on in there as well, that yes,
And
it's
even
fantastic.
OCD, like they do it in such a beautiful way that it's not overt, but like um Iron Man has OCD. Like they talk from the very like don't hand him things. And he will like
Hmm.
constantly use hand wash. And it's just one of those things that it's really subtle, but you can kind of be like, I think for other people to be like, hey, he gets it. Like he understands why I don't want to touch the gas station pump, or
Mhm.
why I don't want that particular briefing handed to me after it's been handed to 5 other people. Like Iron Man gets it.
And I
Well, but
love the way.
I also take issue with a lot of the portrayals of OCD in the media as people who are worried about germs. And I don't think there's enough, um, and also portrayed in a way that we're laughing at the people as opposed to um exhibiting the real pain and suffering that people with OCD experience. So I just have to throw that out there, that is something, as I am, um I was talking about International OCD Foundation. They're really great. And I always like to say that, you know, we definitely need to have humor and laugh at our brains, but not at other people and their
Yeah.
suffering.
And not at their expense, obviously. And
No.
that's kind of why I like the Robert Downey Jr. portrayal of it,
Yeah.
is because as the series evolves, it actually shows the pain he's in because of his secular thinking, not being able to, and a lot of his choices that others don't agree with are kind of related to the fact that he cannot shut his brain off. He's constantly in turmoil.
And one of the things that I really liked about that portrayal as well is that he would just say, um I don't hand me things, hand it to someone else. But he didn't have to explain himself. He didn't have an excuse for it. He just sort of like a very normal, like, nah, I don't get handed things, you know. And I think that that's good. Like, it normalizes them, because I sometimes, when I speak to people that have been newly diagnosed, especially as adults, there is this sort of fear of talking about that diagnosis with someone else. And that's why I have like, I'm on social media and stuff, and I always talk about like my own anxiety and my ADHD and stuff, and I encourage my siblings, and I talk to everyone that will hear, because it opens up that conversation, and then people just become more comfortable with it, because I'm not putting myself down. I'm not saying, oh, this is horrible. I'm just saying, this is why I think this way, or like, this is why I forgot, like, sorry, but I'm trying, kind of thing, and just normalizing it. And I think that's great. There, like, I do, like, I agree with Stacy, though, like, sometimes
Hmm.
there is this sort of, we will love, I think, as mental providers, we will love for big companies to show mental health in a more accurate way, but that's really not their um expertise, and really that's not where, like, the storyline is going. I really do appreciate that they're taking steps to try to do that, especially in some of the newer movies, like what's uh what's it called, Moon Knight. That one was also
Hmm.
great. The best, probably not, but is it better than over other ones? Probably. And I just, if anybody that works in any of these companies happens to be watching this, um, please showcase therapists or psychiatrists in a nicer light, because we tend to always get
Yes,
the
thank
worst
you.
portrayal ever. And I'm like,
Yes,
some
So,
of us are competent and good, you know?
either the monster or
yes.
the like completely detached individual that's like lay on my couch while I play on my phone, pretending like I'm listening to you.
Yep, all the psychiatrists in the media are either evil, sex objects, or completely incompetent. Name one
Yeah.
really competent psychiatrist in like a Disney movie. Anyone? Anyone? No, no,
No. I think the
I
closest
no.
can
thing
think
that
of
I
the
can
There's
ones
think
that
like,
are
of is in
good.
Freaky Friday and they don't actually say whether she's a psychiatrist or psychologist.
Yeah.
But Freaky Friday, I think that's probably the closest.
Okay.
And I think the only reason that I would say the closest is because she sets boundaries with her clients, but she's not unkind to them. But it is like 2 flash scenes in it. It's not a depiction of what she does for a living. And honestly, the only one and it's not in Disney, there is I think, supportive representation in the Grey's Anatomy series where there is a therapist that works with one of the individuals that's traumatized, and
I haven't seen that.
He's actually decent. Like,
did you see the sexy psychiatrist they had in Scrubs?
No, I never watched Scrubs.
It's not
that
in
my
one?
fandom. No.
Or like Harley Quinn, the other uber sexy
Harley Quinn
psychiatrist. Or Batman has another evil psychiatrist. There's another evil psychiatrist.
Oh, I'm pretty sure.
And then apparently the new Matrix movie has an evil psychiatrist. That's why I couldn't watch it. Do you know that?
I didn't see it.
Oh.
Maybe we should do a panel.
I can only OG Matrix.
Maybe we should just do another panel later.
Can we?
Where we talk about what realistically will happen in those situations, like if we were the therapist, or like if they were
mental health treatment in the media. Mental health treatment in the media.
Yes, that would be great.
I've been screaming. I've been like, hey, just throwing this out there. If Star Wars or any Disney franchise wants to consult me about accurate representation of psychiatry in the media, I'm down.
I am literally ready here.
Throw that out into the universe.
That's a great thing to put into the universe because it is needed. I think that people in all walks should be, if you're going to put it in a movie, maybe consult. It's so easy to do now. So easy to get a hold of like a real professional or a real person that has been in that experience in their life, that there's really no excuses anymore. Like, you can't do it poorly. You have no excuse.
Okay. We have a little bit. We can talk about Star Wars.
Okay.
But now we did I guess the Disney princesses, and then we did Marvel a little bit. Now I want to touch on Star Wars a little bit. So if but actually,
I want to talk about our favorite Star Wars character.
That's what I was gonna say. Instead of movie, let's just focus on one character.
Okay.
Yes.
So of course, my not so secret fantasy is to someday be known as the Yoda of Sarasota, and be that, and just embody Yoda in my life fully as the great, wise, and playful, goofy Yoda. So I actually have a lot of Yodas in my office. I have Yoda and Grogu. He's definitely my favorite. Yeah. What about you guys?
I asked a question and I didn't think about this one.
Nicole, go ahead then. Next.
I am quite torn. I won't lie. Favorite movie in the series, Rogue One. Like, hands down, went expecting nothing and got everything, and I was like,
Rogue One is actually, I think that's the best movie too. I have to agree with you there.
But I love Ahsoka. I love her. I feel like they did okay with the series, but who's my favorite?
She's pretty cool.
Baby Yoda, let's be real, there's plenty of Baby Yodas in our house, and I do say that because Grogu just didn't fit my heart, and I was like,
right.
Oh, we've gone so long with Baby Yoda that I struggle to like go back to the name.
Yeah, like I want to go to Grogu's planet. I want to know how they reproduce and make babies, right? Like, is this an egg situation? Are they amphibian, like, like, maybe they can change genders, like some frogs can change genders. I'm just waiting for them to do an entire world building episode on Yoda's entire species.
Yeah, Disney creators, get on it.
Come on.
There's enough.
Right. We don't need any more human Jedi. Okay, we got enough human Jedi. It's fine, right? Let's explore some other species here. An Ewok
I
Jedi.
Ooh, Ewoks, yes, please. I was
I
a
think
dear lover of the Ewok series in the, I
Yeah,
don't know, whenever it came out, 80s. But I love the
yeah.
cartoon. It was great.
I think I'm gonna have to go with
Okay.
the Mandalorian.
Really?
Yes, and I think it's because I really identified with sort of like the arc that they have, where it was a very sort of like strict,
Wow.
you can't take your helmet off kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then it
I was always like,
sort of
why are
later
you following
became
this cult, man?
yes, but then later, like it was like more like not necessarily a couple, but it like became like a family. And I'm like, yeah, because you like have disagreements with your family, but you still want to be there, to help and protect each other. And I
Mhm.
think I really like that because they're also like found family, right? Because none of them are really related by blood at all. So I
Okay.
really like that aspect as well because so for me in my case, I think I wanted to create a space for people to feel safe to geek out with because I was always self-conscious about how geeky I was and not showing it when I was like especially in high school. I didn't want anybody to know I was reading fan fiction, and I was totally obsessed with Yu-Gi-Oh at the time. Like I didn't really want anyone to know about that because I saw how people who overly expressed their interest on like geeky things, how they were treated. And I was like, I don't want to be treated like that. And then it wasn't until I made it to grad school that I found my family. I found my geeky family, and I became very comfortable with just geeking out. And I really appreciate like being able to have that. So I want to provide that for other people. So um yeah, found family, I think it's very important, especially when our family of origin sometimes it can be quite toxic to our
And I
own
like
well-being.
that too about like the Mandalorian it is a culture as well as a religious following. And I like later in the series that they actually show that there are sections of that where they still they actually come together. They do kind of butt heads about like those who will wear their helmets versus those that won't. And eventually, as the series progresses, gets into that they kind of accept each other for that we can all be part of this. We're all still Mandalorian, but
Mhm.
each one of us practices differently, which I think can really be uniting for people of you don't have to be this way. And I'm with you. Like I grew up and like I kind of lean more into the books. Like I've seen the movies, but like read the Witcher series, read the like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. Like I started with the books, and that was very much
Mhm.
like that wasn't a girl thing that you did. Like
Mhm.
girls weren't supposed to be geeks. Like guys could be geeks, and that was okay. You still kind of got some flack for it, but girls, no, you got to follow the code. And so that was something I'm with you. Was really like we don't talk about these things. We don't get excited about and even childlike things. I think a lot of times for females, you're really pushed to put aside the things of childhood. Like there's plenty of material out there teaching girls how to become women, but
Mm.
you don't necessarily get to keep those childhood things because the expectation is once you get into the womanhood sphere, um, you shouldn't be geeking out and you shouldn't be liking princesses. And we all know that's not true. There's a whole following of people who are Disney adults that just have pure joy and wonder in the experience. And I love that nowadays we're getting to places where we can normalize that a bit more, as opposed to when I was growing up, like this was the box. Like you stay in the box, and the box didn't include being a nerd or being able to read about fantastic journeys. You were supposed to read The Babysitter's Club and Anne of Green Gables. And I love those. Love those for anybody that loves them. But that
Twilight.
wasn't my medium. And so oftentimes I kind of had to hide what I read and be like, oh, I don't read. Reading's not a thing. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, read all the things.
Yeah, we still have a ways to go because I still see people making fun of like how annoying Disney adults can be, and things like that. And I'm like, why are we okay with people wearing the jerseys of their favorite basketball player or football player and going out and having like having like Super Bowl Sundays and like get-togethers and going to watch games, but people can't do that for Disney. Like it's the same thing. It's just something you're really passionate about, and uh, I can understand why it can be considered like annoying if somebody is super excited about a fandom that you're not in and they're just talking your ear off because they're so excited about it. But we have to understand like maybe not everything is like your cup of tea, but it is for them. So like how would you want other people to react when you're sharing something that's so special to you and that has really been a safe space for you and a source of comfort throughout your life, and people are just there making fun of you for having that.
Yeah.
Like that, those are things that we also need to consider as well. Yeah, what about you, Stacey? Like what character would you? Yoda, you said Yoda.
Um, from Star Wars. Wait, what character would I for what? Sorry, what's the question?
um well, I was because we spent so much talking about like our own characters, and I think we just kind of like breezed through yours. But you said Yoda, right?
Oh, I did
Yeah.
say Yoda. I didn't understand.
Yeah, can you
Okay,
but I want to like circle back and talk a little bit
circling
more
back.
about Yoda. Yeah, because I feel
And we've
like he
already
is
plugged
one of
Disney
those
to make a
characters.
Yoda series.
Right. Okay, so circling back to Yoda. Um, I love the combination of playfulness and wisdom. Because, okay, so you were just now talking about how there's a misconception that adulthood and maturity means an absence of play. And I think Yoda is I think Yoda ties into that as a character that does exemplify a lot of humor and playfulness with maturity and wisdom. Um, that we can have both, and we should have both. That um curiosity, openness, humor, play, are parts of our younger selves that are really healthy to embody in our adult self and our adult relationships as well.
And something I would like to add in terms of Yoda, like
Yes.
he's supposed to be like super old or whatever, but he's
Right.
still having fun and he's still
Yeah.
fit. And I think that's something like we have to like remind ourselves that as we get
Yeah.
older, it is possible to be fit and healthy and still do other things we used to do in the past. Because sometimes I'm like, oh no, my back is going, and I'm like, well, I haven't stretched in like who knows how long, so there's a reason why.
And also like people underestimate Yoda, so I think I resonate with that too. Um, because he looks so different and he's diminutive in size and is goofy that you don't anticipate him having a lot of strength, fortitude, and wisdom. Like when Luke first meets him, he's like, "Oh, there's this crazy random amphibian here." And then you learn that Yoda is his greatest mentor.
Yeah, and also I really like the thing he's not impulsive when he acts.
Yeah.
He's just kind of like waiting and waiting, and that's part of why I think why he is underestimated a lot of the times, because he's not like shouting back and forth and be like, no, I'm gonna like kick your ass.
Yeah.
Like he's just
I
kind of
think
waiting for the right moment, and then yeah.
staying out of judgment too. I think he stays out of judgment of others.
Mhm.
And I think there's some like he's okay, like stays out of ego too, which is nice. Yeah.
He's very good at neutral
Yeah.
gin for us Avatar nerds. He's very good at
I
waiting
was
for that, like just being able to absorb the moment and act when he has to act, and not necessarily getting into conflict for the sake of like, I got to charge in and be the hero. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of
one
seeing
of the
the
things
big
that I was
picture.
Yeah, one of the things that I really wanted, because then you said, oh, like having a Yoda series, that would be cool. And I was like, yes, because then he can kind of be sort of like the Uncle Iroh of like Star Wars. Because, Uncle Iroh is like, every time I
Yeah.
watch Avatar, it's like I get
He's
so
my
much out
favorite
of like,
character in Avatar too. So I guess that's a trend then, right? Because that's definitely my favorite Avatar character.
Yeah.
Yeah, hands down.
yeah. And
Uncle
then I'm like,
Iroh is
yeah, it would be great to have more Yoda, so we have more of those like wisdom quotes and more like, more content for us to enjoy.
And then
It would be
Appa.
great,
Appa's second favorite.
oh, if they did anything right in this new like
Yeah.
live action series, they did Appa pretty well. Like for the tech we
Yeah.
have out there, they did good.
Appa looked good. Appa looked good, but I couldn't get into the dialogue.
No,
No.
that's because it was not great. There's not a lot of
But
emotional connection, and there's not
yeah,
a lot of, I
yeah,
think,
the dialogue
um,
killed
I
it
would
for
so
me.
say it gets a
I
little
have to
bit.
have
the
great
actor.
dialogue. But the
Yeah,
creatures were cool.
creatures are
That
cool.
The
yeah.
outfits
They
are
did
great.
Sokka well. I'll give them Sokka. They can have him.
Mhm.
They did him well.
He's a good actor.
Later in the episodes, he gets a lot better. At the beginning, I was kind of like not the same character, because then
What
later
is
he starts joking around, and
happening?
I'm like, yeah, that's the Sokka I know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wait. Oh no.
that'll be
The
another
word
series we'll have
for
to connect
Cristine
on
cinema.
is Avatar because like
It
I could
sounds
do
like
that all
fun.
day long.
Definitely. I am always open to geeking out about Avatar. Okay, so I have so many other ideas that I would like to collaborate with you both on. So we will leave a little bit of mystery for later panels.
Mhm.
So if people wanted to collaborate with you or reach out for mental health services, or just questions in general, where can people find you?
My website is stacygreetermd.com, and that's spelled STACYGREETERMD.com. My office is in Sarasota, Florida. Our number is 941-413-0834. I am accepting new patients, and also my two awesome psychiatric PAs are accepting new patients, Bethany and Kira. Thanks.
And all this information will also be at the bottom of the description of this video, like to make it easier for everyone, but just in
Cool.
case.
So I only practice in Canada, but I can consult outside of Canada and be involved in panels and things like that. But as far as information, like actual counseling, it's forbeautifulcounseling@gmail.com. And honestly, on any, if people need to get a hold of me, Facebook is fine. I'm really quite neutral, but I'm terrible at answering my phone, so I wouldn't even give you a phone number. Text, please.
Oh, and I
But
should mention I'm only licensed to see patients in Florida. But I also am happy to do my fantasy themed psychiatry presentations all over the world and all over the US.
oh yeah, that's excellent. We might have to convince you to get registered up in Canada. We are like desperate, especially in
Hear
Southern
you.
Alberta, for child psychiatry. I've
Yeah.
actually debated whether I need to go back to school and get my psychiatry because I'm like,
So
there's
that's
just
why I
nobody.
started psychiatry boot camp series originally, is to upskill and train more people to be able to do psychiatry, to
Yeah.
increase access to psychiatry by
Oh,
teaching others to do psychiatry.
it
Because
is
you
so
you can
needed.
only see so many patients, right? And I can't see
Mhm.
patients in Canada, but feel free to share, or like if you know a conference or something where people want to learn more psychiatry, how to do psychiatry in Canada, then it improves access.
That's wonderful.
Yes. So with that, please don't forget to check out all the socials for Psychology Freak
Mhm.
for Geeks. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, and please, if you have any questions or any ideas on how or like panels you would like these two lovely ladies to join me
Cool.
in, please write it in the comments, and we will try to make that happen. If you have any individual questions for that you want answered,
Mhm.
yeah, as well, that's great. Let us know your thoughts. Like, what movies would you you recommend, like for other people, or what are your favorite characters that you learn so much from as, Disney characters. That's a huge range, so I think everybody will have somebody to comment on. And that being said, please don't forget to reframe and re-enchant your mind, and we will see you on the next panel. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.